Sometimes it's fun to just get off the beaten path, take the road less traveled and see what's out there. That's a big reason we even bought a Jeep. We heard rumors of Frisco, a ghost town near Milford, Utah, that was supposed to be worth the visit. Hey, it's only a 200-mile road trip with a little dirt sprinkled in just to keep it interesting. When was the last time your route to southern Utah wasn't on I-15? We stayed west of Utah Lake and followed along Redwood Road. Then we took a hard ride at Goshen, then through to Eureka. How many times have we blown through Eureka on the way to the dunes and never really even slowed down to take it in? 669 people call Eureka home, down from its mining boom days of almost 4,000. In '79, Eureka was placed on the National Register of Historic Places. Porter Rockwell, the destroying angel, he was Joseph Smith and Brigham Young's bodyguard. His cabin, originally located west of Eureka, still stands here today, right on Main Street. Eureka is now the site of a 5-year EPA Superfund cleanup starting in 2003. They removed and buried lead and arsenic and other mining tailings. It's really impressive to see, and Eureka is now good to go. Be sure to make a stop at the gas hole, then make a quick walk down Main. It's worth a look. We wanted to check out all those places we usually just drive past in a rush to get to wherever there is, but not today. The road out of Eureka reminds us of a long and lonely highway east of Omaha. It's kind of nice to skip the I-15 truck and camper fest and let the Jeep run free. Well, each of the small towns along Highway 6 had something memorable for us, especially if you're an old tractor fan, and who isn't? That right there is straight up yard art. With Lindell in the rearview mirror, we pressed on toward Delta, a common destination for off-roaders. We stayed on Highway 50 and pressed on toward Deseret, which required a hard left onto Highway 257. Now, as you leave Deseret, if you watch close on the right, you'll see Fort Deseret State Park. Okay, so it's not some mega tourist site, but it begs to ask, why is this even here? I'm glad you asked. It seems the settlers and the local tribe were having a conflict over cattle rustling. And there were a bunch of threats and posturing, similar to a typical social media trolling of today. The mudslinging dragged on for years. Things look like they might escalate into what do we call it now? A peaceful protest. That's when Brigham Young told the locals to fort up. Things cooled down, and after 8 years, the spat was over. Not wanting the fort to go to waste, it was used to corral cattle after the treaty was signed, and it still mostly stands today. Mystery solved. Let's see what else we can find. Oh yes, on a closely related story, this wind and solar farm was constructed as a defense, this time against darkness, heat, and cold. I'm not sure if you know it, but Utah ranks in the top 10 states for solar energy. The first wind project in Utah came online near Milford in 2009 and eventually expanded to a 306 megawatt facility. That seems like a big number, so that must be good. Next stop, Milford. Milford is one of those towns with its own personality. There's a distinctive water tower and a hilltop M, apparently a high school thing. There's a very nice city park, complete with rodeo grounds for the city's world champion rodeo athletes. But most importantly, the historical earthquake activity here is 3,532% greater than the overall U.S. average. Now, that's impressive. Seems like a great place for a mine. Let's go check it out. The city of Frisco is a short 26-minute drive west of town. You have to watch for the turnoff or just GPS it. The dirt road is well maintained, and staying to the left will take you straight to the Frisco Cemetery. The old cemetery tells us a lot about life in Frisco. Looking at the grave markers and doing some math told us that the mortality rate for the children here must have been excruciatingly high. The number of headstones with 3 years or less lifespan painted a picture of their struggle for survival. And time does take its toll on the gravesites. It turns out that Frisco is a bit on the mysterious side. Few photos exist of it, well, at least at its peak. The mine is actually called the Horn Silver Mine. Now, did you ever ask yourself why here? Why did they decide to stake a claim and go for it right here in the middle of nowhere? How could they possibly know? Well, the story is that in 1875, two prospectors were out wandering around, prospecting, and they saw a weird-looking rock and picked it up. It turned out to be loaded with pure silver. Bingo. They staked a claim and then immediately sold it for a cool 25 G's. Now that was an impressive sum of money for the time. That was right up until they mined 50 million in silver out of the claim. Oops. To be fair, a lot of the 50 million had to go towards, infrastructure. Little things like a railroad to connect Frisco to the rest of the world. I guess it's a good thing that the Horn Silver Mine was said to be, unquestionably, the richest silver mine in the world now being worked. The town grew to a city of 6,000 very respectable and law-abiding citizens. Yeah, right. They were a bunch of tough miners with money and time on their hands. Violent and lawless were the most common adjectives used to describe the town. And Frisco's murder rate would have made today's Chicago look like amateur hour. That's when Sheriff Pearson came to town and earned instant fame and celebrity status. The day he rolled into town, he started gunning down the town's known murderers and outlaws. Trials were optional. Lead poisoning became a reality, not just another occupational hazard for bad guy miners. Pearson was said to run the town with an iron fist, and Frisco became, close to civilized. Things were going so well. But, there's always something. And on February 12th, 1885, the most famous day in Frisco history, there was a massive cave-in. In fact, the mother of all cave-ins. They said it felt like an earthquake in Milford over 10 miles away. And in Milford, they know their earthquakes. They closed the mine for a year, then tried to reopen, but the richest part of the mine was sealed off, so production stopped. And by the late 20s, Frisco was well on its way to the ghost town we see today. So when you take the short hike and see the dilapidated store and the cabins, be sure to take a second and stick your cell phone through the grates.
You see? Yeah, heck yeah.
And get a great shot of a big old hole, as a souvenir. TeraFlex and its associates accept no responsibility for your actions or failure to maintain possession of said cell phone. No liability is expressed or implied. Walking around the collapsed mine shafts is sketchy, and nails are not rare, so be careful. There's some open shafts to be avoided, but the remains of the town are just fascinating to see. How could they live in such cramped conditions? Overall, this must have been one impressive operation. Sadly, there are very few surviving pictures of Frisco, but the remains of the town and the mine itself are so worth seeing. Some of the remaining foundations are massive. This place was built to last, and even the head frame to the mine stands to this day. Fun to contemplate and try to get your head around how in the world they did so much with the tech of the day. We jumped back in the Jeep and took the short ride over the hill to the site of the smelter and kilns. The mine had 2 smelters, and one of the smelters had its very own kilns. Now, apparently that's a rarity. FYI, kilns are used to make charcoal. Think of your authentic barbecue grill that uses charcoal briquettes. The charcoal burns much more slowly and makes a lot more heat, which is perfect for smelting the millions in silver that was mined annually. We took a drive around the smelter sites and found some furnace parts as well as some other building remains. The kilns are a marvel to see, and with any luck and some protection, they'll be there for another 100 years. BLM does manage the area, so we should still have access, and hopefully there's a future for Frisco. Now, this may not be a big-time off-road trail ride, but it's a great day trip. And the walk through Frisco is so worth doing. So thanks for watching. Now, go see it yourself.